It was a historical moment listening to three fire chiefs talk about the creation and history of Hall County Fire Services.
Chief, thanks for coming out today to talk about the history of Hall County and the fire department. And actually, it's very interesting. You were the first chief of Hall County Fire Department when it was created back in 1970-71. Tell us what you walked into when you walked into work the first day.
Well, interestingly enough, I actually was hired on January the 14th by the county commissioners, and we answered our first call the next day about noontime. In fact, it was to a auto accident on what's now 365 was our very first call. That was a car fire. But again, less than 24 hours after I was hired, we answered that call. There had been a private fire department in Hall County called Suburban Fire Department, and I worked for them. It went bankrupt, and late December, and the citizens had already voted on a county department and approved that, and the county commissioners bought all the assets of the private fire department. So we had the trucks, we had the radio system, we had the phone system, everything ready to go. So basically, we just actually changed over from a private operation to a county operation and moved on from there.
So we had the headquarters station on Athens Highway, and we're still in that station, Station 1 now. Station 2 at Quillen's Corner, which we just moved out of into a larger station. Station 3 on Price Road.
Right.
We're still in that same building. Station 4 on McEver Road, still in that same building. Station 5 on Atlanta Highway, we moved to a larger building just a quarter of a mile from there. Station 6 now is not in the City Hall anymore. We actually built a new station in 1990 across 365 there, and then you mentioned Station 7.
Right.
We built in 83, I believe. We have 15 stations now, and then we kind of co-op with the city. We have 2 med units in Gainesville's 2 of their stations. Did you have just a fire truck in each station, or what kind of equipment did you have?
We had Station 1 on Athens Highway. We ran a rescue unit, a tanker, and a pumper out of that station. Station 4, we ran a rescue unit and a pumper. The rest of the stations just had pumpers.
How many people were assigned?
Well, it depends on where we were in history. Towards the end, we had 3 people on each engine, 2 on each rescue. There were times when we first started, we had 1 person on an engine, and then we went to 2 and then to 3, but we were at 3 people, and we had a total of 89 people when I left Hall County.
We've grown a little bit since then, but with the economy now, we're back to 2 people on the fire truck. So things are, you mentioned off camera a minute ago, things come around in cycles, so we're back to that cycle. When did you first start in the fire service? You said you were Suburban. Was that your first venture?
That was my first venture, 1963. Gosh, that sounds like a long time ago. But in 1963, I started off as a dispatcher with Suburban. And it was rather interesting. Since I only had 1 arm, the chief, of course, wouldn't let me play fireman. So, but a young man came to work for Suburban named David Chamberlain, who later went on to become chief of the Atlanta Fire Department. He came to work at Suburban, and he and I sneaked and trained. We put on turnout gear, quick rapid dress, this sort of thing. Then we'd get on the pumper and pull out and put the pump in gear and pull a line and do all that stuff on our own, self-trained, if you will. And it turned out one day that all the trucks were out on calls, and we got a call to Gene Tyner's supermarket on Atlanta Highway, and I was the dispatcher, and I was the only person available. Everybody else was on calls, and there was a pumper there. I took the pumper and put out Gene Tyner's supermarket. So that was really my first venture into firefighting, and the chief says, well, I guess if you can do it, we'll do it. So I went on to become a captain with Suburban and acting chief as it was actually going under. The chief had left, and I was acting chief for the last few months of Suburban, but my first real fire experience was Gene Tyner's Supermarket. I think that's a vacant lot now. Or
It actually went on in the following fire. They didn't do quite so well, so it did burn down several years after that, but it is an empty lot now.
So apparently me putting it out didn't take.
Well, you did a good job, and then follow up that maybe the guys didn't do quite as good.
Oh, everybody does the best they can with
There
what
you
they
go.
got at the time.
Well, if you started in 1963, and I know you retired a couple of years ago, you've seen a lot of changes. What's some things that's changed in your mind with firefighting, whether it be people, equipment, technology, tactics?
Some of the things interesting is I saw the first women coming into the fire service, and that was rather traumatic in some places. In others, it was kind of a smooth operation. I saw basically the integration of the fire service. I hired the first black firefighter in North Georgia, who later went on to become a chief himself. So, and as those things happened, both the hiring of women, the hiring of blacks and all that, every one of them was the end of the fire service. There's no way we could survive that. And then talking about other changes, probably the most dramatic change that I feel like that I was involved in and I've seen is the involvement in the EMS of the fire service. When I went in the fire service, firemen squirted water. That's what we did. We climbed ladders and we squirted water, and anything else, somebody else would do that. The involvement in emergency medical service has been something that saved just countless lives.
Late 1978 and early 1979, at that time, the ambulance service was covered by our local funeral homes. And today, you would think that would be very ironic to see an ambulance and a funeral home working together, but that's what was in place at that time. And the state began to require more and more certification and training of the ambulance attendants. And as that occurred and the cost to operate went up, the funeral homes got together, approached the county commission and told them they were going out of business and that the county needed to get ready to go in business. I remember getting a call or going to a meeting where we were told the fire department needed to be prepared to take the ambulance service over in about 60 days. So it was a big. I remember many days when working in the office where 5 o'clock would come around and I'd look and I would think about going home and I'd see that all of our ambulances were gone, and maybe we had one left, and I would hang around and grab another staff person and we would staff that ambulance until we got an ambulance back from Atlanta. So it was a trying time to try and keep up with all that, but we were young and capable of doing it.
Well, we still today, we've got 16 ambulances on the road today, and there's quite a few times, in fact, recently this week, we're pretty much out of ambulances when all 16 of those are tied up on calls. So the volume is expanded kind of along with our fleet.
You know, I think that is a very good indication of our, I guess, just the way people think about emergency services and government in general. We are a victim of our own success with 911, where we put 911 on the side of our trucks and on the side of our ambulances, and if you need help, call 911. And what happened was a transition where I know my parents and my family, if something happened when I was a kid and I was growing up, we took care of ourselves. We only used it in very, very critical type of emergencies. And now today, we classify emergencies totally different.